Hi, welcome to Hindustan Times Leadership Summit. We have with us Dr. Ash Tewari, who is a surgeon scientist from Mount Sinai University in New York. Dr. Tewari, first thing first, the cancer session began with the mortality rate, high mortality rate in India as compared to the Western countries. So what do you think is the reason behind it? Why are more people dying of cancer in India as compared to the US?
I think one of the sheer number game is that India has more population. So the number of people who will die for a larger pool of patients is going to be higher. But when you look at the proportion of men who are dying when diagnosed with cancer, that also seems to be a little bit higher here. And partly it could be that we are picking up the cancer a little in a later stages, and maybe the cancer which we are dealing here are more aggressive. But unless and until we know the reason between these two, we cannot be sure why. But yes, the proportion of men who seem to be dying with different cancers here is a little higher as compared to
so has the modalities of treatment got to do with it? I mean, the pattern of treatment or the kind of treatment we have available here, does that have a bearing on it, do you think, to an extent?
I think cancer outcome depends a lot on when you intervene.
Okay.
Meaning you could have lost a battle even before you got into a battle because we waited long enough, or a patient didn't even come to us for getting a treatment. So multiple factors contribute to why there could be a difference in outcomes, but everyone seems to agree that there are certain cancers, if picked up early and tackled just like anyone would do in a good program, you can have a real change in mortality. So finding a cancer early enough may itself have an impact as to what the outcome is going to be.
And the kind of treatment that's available right now, I mean, say 10 or 20 years ago, we may not have had the same results. Now there are advances in cancer therapy, in cancer treatment. There are lots of advanced therapies now. I think we were talking about immunotherapy, we were talking about, I think, stem cell therapy also to some extent. So do you think that has made a difference?
Modernization of cancer therapies, and especially fine balance between surgical therapy, a timely surgical therapy combined with very targeted chemotherapy or targeted radiation, targeted and again added with the immune system modifiers, what we call immunotherapies, that can have an impact on the survival. I don't think it's in one thing which does the magic. Still, the mainstay of cancer treatment is find it early enough before it has spread significantly, and then you can have a real impact on outcomes. If you find it a little later, then you will have to use adjuvant treatments, and adjuvant treatments are either radiation or chemotherapy or immunotherapy. And of late, we talked a lot about the immune mechanisms in immunotherapy, and it is making a difference, but putting things in perspective, it is still a small percentage of patients can benefit from immunotherapy because there's a lot more to be done and learned in that field.
Dr. Tewari, what about diagnostics? You know, it has made a lot of difference. I mean, I think now we have gene sequencing, which is quite popular. Suddenly it has gained popularity. So do you think that is effective? That is the reason, one of the reasons why cancer numbers are going up, that we have better diagnostic systems now in place?
So that phenomena in which we are having a larger number of patients being diagnosed just because of our diagnostic abilities have gone up, may have an impact what we used to call a Will Rogers phenomena. Meaning for a short while you will find that the cancer incidence is going up and then it will plateau. But I'm not sure if that is what's happening.
After a point,
I mean, I think
use it as a justification.
Yeah, so cancer incidence is a interplay between the environmental factors, lifestyle, infections, and many things, and obviously that can get artificially inflated or artificially reduced by the abilities to pick up. Early on you pick it up or later on you pick it up. that's a lead time bias or a lag time bias discussions which come up. Still, sum total, we should do everything possible to find a cancer early, because at that point many options exist which can treat the cancer. If we let the cat go out of the bag, then we are basically chasing it with different kinds of treatments, and the mortalities go higher and higher, and side effects of treatment go higher and higher.
So what is the stage when it is diagnosed? There's still a possibility. It's a good stage. I mean, nothing would be good. I mean, getting cancer would not be a good thing. But there must be some stage 1, stage 2, for example. You know, till such time, it's still okay. I mean, it's still salvageable. The situation is salvageable, because obviously most of the time we just tend to ignore symptoms when we talk about, you know, when you should see a doctor. I mean, if there's something suspicious, we just keep neglecting. Because we live in a state of denial most of the time. You know, this can't happen to us. Not the other way around, that this can happen. So we should take everything, all the symptoms very suspiciously, or you should see a doctor. So, I mean, what is the time before, you know, a patient or a person would realize that there are symptoms and should see a doctor? I mean, what exactly would you say is that?
There are 3 different crude stages we can look into. One, when patient doesn't have a symptom, but cancer is growing within.
Exactly.
It has not grown enough that it has produced a mass, or has produced any pain, or has produced any symptom. That, I think, is the most curable of the cancers, and that is where the screening comes in. Not for every cancer, but there are some in which it makes an impact.
Like?
Breast cancer. I mean, I think finding a cancer early enough, it will make a difference. Then the second one comes in which the early signs and symptoms are there, but still cancer has not left the primary organ. That what we call a localized cancer. Localized cancers also have a good outcome. And then, of course, it's either a locally advanced or a metastatic. When it is widely spread, then we are fighting a battle which involves many different kind of treatments, chemotherapies, hormones, radiations, immunotherapy, and outcomes don't tend to be as promising as just finding a cancer early enough. So I would rather invest more on finding cancer early and doing the least to get this thing taken care of than waiting for it to declare itself and then fighting a battle which we find it difficult to win.
So also another thing is there's treatment, there are options, we know that. So life after cancer, not many people talk about it. At least in India, it's more about curing a particular disease. You know, quality of life is not that important. It's like, oh, you're cured, this is fine. But in the US, we have seen that people a quality of life does matter, you know, how you lead your life after you've been treated. So your specialty is prostate cancer. So you must have seen patients, you know, before, during their treatment and after. So how do you compare? How do you see life has changed?
A lot depends on where and at what time in the cancer's journey we get to intervene. If cancer is truly localized, then we can actually intervene in a much more delicate way. We can basically try to preserve the bodily functions, and in prostate cancer surgery, these functions are either control of urination or ability to have intercourse. Both can get impacted if the cancer is growing more than the confines of the organ itself, because in the neighborhood there are certain nerves and functional structures which controls those bodily functions. So a lot depends on when you find it. Second, it depends on how well you plan it. And third, depends on if we can save those structures. In a significant number of patients, if cancer is found early enough, and I'm talking about prostate cancer right now.
When you say early enough,
early enough meaning it has in 1 or 2. 1 or 2 when it has not, when it has not started going around into the nerves, that's when you can really make an impact. And you can not only cure the cancer, but also can maintain the bodily function in a predominant number of patients. Not in all of them, but majority.
But you have had patients, you know, who are leading almost near normal life after cancer treatment. And when we talk about near normal, you talked about 2 functions, of course, urination and
sexual function.
Sexual function, yeah. So it has been retained, right?
It can be.
It can be. So what exactly treatment modality do you follow when you're dealing with?
Let's focus on prostate actually.
Yeah.
So prostate cancer treatment depends on exactly where the cancer is. if cancer is within the organ, you have many options. And one of the options is sometimes don't do anything. What we call it as an active surveillance, meaning if we can actually define how bad this cancer is based on biopsy, based on the blood testing, based on imaging, we can choose to observe certain amount of cancers. Because if we are observing, we are not damaging anything and patient is not going to have any side effects. And then what we call active surveillance. And I have literally many hundreds of patients who are being followed on a routine basis by active surveillance, in which we just do some blood testing, some exams, occasional imagings and occasional biopsies to follow them up. We complement their follow-ups with some genomic analysis. And this approach has a 70% success rate in patients who have an early cancer, what we call, in prostate cancer, we gave a rating known as the Gleason grade rating.
Is it true that it's one of the most treatable cancers?
It is one of the most treatable cancers found in a timely manner. And if we approach them, many of them, they don't even need a treatment. Then comes some who need a treatment. And then you factor in the life expectancy of the patient and other bodily functions and other surgical histories and other medical issues. Many of them can either be a candidate for either some kind of surgical treatment or some kind of radiation treatment. Then comes which are more locally advanced and they need more than one treatment, sometimes surgery combined with radiation, sometimes radiation with some hormones. And then there are the ones which are the very aggressive kinds, which have already left the organ and gone to the bones or the lymph nodes and all those things. So there also we redefine the extent of spread. Some of them, they are diffusely metastatic, meaning the cancer is many places. And some of them have a small areas in either in the lymph nodes or in the bone. We call them oligometastatic. So even cancers which have spread a little bit, of late there have been some at the trial basis approaches in which we will control the outside cancer in a different way and still go and tackle the primary. We do get significant number of patients who are not dealing with cancer issues in the long run if we combine multiple modalities. So a lot depends on when in the cancer journey you intervene. You have to stage the cancer. You have to combine more than one modality sometimes. But overall, I think it's quite promising, at least the disease which I get to see most. That's the prostate cancer.
Is there a difference between the treatment that happens in the West and in India? I mean, if we talk about prostate cancer treatment in India, how much are you satisfied with the outcomes, or do you think we are progressing quite fast? Or
I think we have a great surgical pool and great cancer centers here. So it all depends on when patients present. I think skills...
So we talk about lack of manpower, skilled manpower actually, that's a big problem in India. You know, people don't reach where they should be. I mean, if they get diagnosed with cancer, rural population is also, it's not like just...
Yeah, I think then any doctor cannot do much if the cancer is already presenting at a late stage. So the beauty of cancer treatment is to find it early, do everything possible to stage it, and then do everything possible to remove it with the least disruption in the surrounding area. And that's what we need to focus on.
Dr. Tewari, how much significant role does diet play when we talk about cancer? So a lot of people have this curiosity, what should they eat, what should they not eat before, to somehow manage it. Does diet play a role?
Scientifically, this is a question which needs to be studied in an appropriate way. But there are evidences that diets which are rich in fatty things, diets which is rich in sugar, can actually feed cancer. So it makes sense for us to cut it down on that. Especially the hormonal cancers like prostate and the breast cancers may actually thrive on sugar. So at least don't feed the enemy. And it makes sense for us to not to be in that situation. It can also have an impact through obesity on the hormonal balance of the body. So certain hormonal cancers can have an impact through the diet. I'm a big believer of exercise also. I mean, I think exercise also helps in fighting off cancer.
Yeah, so basically
it doesn't cure it, it makes things manageable.
Stay on the safer side, yeah. So lifestyle changes, so which means like doing exercise, cutting down on, as you said, red meat and sugar. So this would somehow help. I mean,
it will.
In some way.
It does.
Thank you, Dr. Tewari. Thank you so much for talking to us. It was a lovely discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.